Australian government cancelled Novak Djokovic's visa for a second time today, saying the world tennis #1 unvaccinated for COVID-19 may pose a risk to the community. Immigration Minister Alex Hawke used discretionary powers to again cancel Djokovic's visa. Let's now get more from Benjamin Leshuru.
That is a developing story, as you said, and I'm joined again by Davidson. We spoke to him earlier, but there's developing matters in Australia on the go at the moment. Bruce, thank you so much for agreeing to join us yet again. Things are moving, things are happening at the moment. What is the latest that you found out from the ground in Australia? All right, it appears Bruce, can you hear me?
I can hear you well, Benjamin.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I was told that there was definitely an appeal put in by the legal team of Djokovic. That I've also now heard has been withdrawn. There are two cars, official cars from the Australian Open at the Djokovic Hotel, which indicate that he's ready to leave. Already members of his team have been seen at Melbourne International Airport with their bags, and this is a very interesting development, because I was really thinking that Djokovic would definitely appeal, because the consequences of him not being able to enter Australia due to this revoking for 3 years would impact heavily on his tennis career. Especially seeing that he has got, of all the top players, enough talent and enough legs to see him through another few years as a dominant #1. But, the timing was very, very appropriate from the government. 5 o'clock Australian time in the afternoon on Friday. Any appeal could only be heard next week on Monday. And, of course, the Australian Open starts on Monday. So that would technically rule him out of the tournament per se.
Bruce, it's interesting that it looks by all indications that they are not going to fight, they're going to leave. But is it just possible that they could decide to obviously abandon the Australian Open? It looks like that ship has sailed, it's not going to happen anymore. But for the purposes of the immigration rules and whether he will be deported or not, he doesn't need to be playing in the Australian Open. Can he stay and fight at least the deportation so that he's able to be allowed into Australia next year for the next 3 years?
That's a big question, and that could take place, because he doesn't necessarily have to be in the dock in order to do that. We've seen that often happen, where it can be done virtually, and I think that will take place. There will be discussions between the various parties, and he will definitely appeal to be able to come back into Australia again. We must remember that Australia is one of the dominant tennis playing nations of the world. It hosts the ATP Cup, which Serbia have been a very big part of in the past. It is also a contender for the Davis Cup finals. So a lot is being planned for Australia, and it wouldn't be in the interest of Djokovic not to be able to play in that country for a 3-year period. However, Benjamin, we must also remember that there is an election next year in Australia in May. The Australian government want to stay in power. We know how that chops and changes over the years, and this is going to be a big boost for the ruling government, especially amongst the Australians, who were slowly but surely getting fed up with the Djokovic saga and had asked him to leave their country.
Bruce, you spoke to a high-ranking official inside Tennis Australia, and allegedly the decision to announce the revoking of the visa yet again was deliberate up until 5 p.m., as you said. What is the reason by government? Because we wondered the entire week, we had been waiting for a decision on what's going to happen with Djokovic. It was decided that it's going to be on Friday, 5 p.m. in Australia. Interestingly.
Very interesting. And I think that the government, as I said a little earlier, planned that so they could make the appeal even more difficult for him. Because an appeal that was won by Djokovic would be a very big slap in the face for the government, who had already had a judgment against them when he appealed the first visa rejection by Judge Kelly. So I think that timing was very appropriate. But I must also say that there was a lot of evidence that had to be collected by the immigration minister before he made that decision. And I know that there were discussions with the newspaper La Quip. There was discussions with the Spanish government about his trip to Spain, which he didn't disclose before he came to Australia. So all of that evidence needed to be in writing. It needed to be safe and secure before any decision was made, although the decision announced was made because of the safety of the Australian people. But I think that they had to have all their ducks in a row before making this decision. This is a big story, and this involves the world's number one tennis player, Novak Djokovic.
Bruce Davidson, we are going to leave it here for now. It's a developing one, as we said, and we'll keep in touch with you with that ear on the ground in Australia. So the news coming in from Australia is that Novak Djokovic is back at his hotel, bags packed and looks ready to go. His team is already at the airport. And just after the announcement was made that his visa had been revoked again, papers were filed by his legal team to appeal yet again. But what we understand now from Australia is that the papers have been withdrawn, and it looks like they will not, at least for now, be fighting the decision by government to revoke his visa. So that's what's happening in the Novak Djokovic soapy